and you've probably seen it because it's been replicated millions of times, and you can find it in frames at Target, for example. A couple, has a beret, and they're kissing wildly on the streets of Paris. Paris, 1970. Duano might have eyed and shot us for how brazenly and rapaciously we kissed. My red pumps akimbo on the cobbles, you peeling off my silvery raincoat, the poplars in the Bois de Boulogne blowing trombones, trumpets, coronets. We were as tender and ductile as fronds, curled up in each other in pathos and glory, cooling down only deep in the night when we wandered back to our hotel to sleep entwined and inwardly leaning on that sour, broken-springed mattress, our room's one window drawing dawn's lines and arcs, chimneys, rooftops, domes. What did they think of us using together the floor's common bath, pipes knocking, water swirling through the bidet, you straddling it, trying to wash your scrotum, my belly muffling your laughter. We could not have helped it, dissolving back into kisses, into resurrections, sprinting like fawn and satyr to our room, wishing the disdainful doe-eyed desk clerk gone, when, past noon, we'd stride out again to gamble and oogle and gawk, eat and drink, kiss and talk, our bodies opening and flaunting themselves like two blooms of hibiscus because we were in Paris, the city set aside for creatures in our enlarged, engorged condition. And time was right. I often write about language itself. I have many poems in this book about English and play on words, and you know, some people say language is the subject of all poems. It's certainly the subject of a number of mine, and this one's called Euphemisms. Eavesdropper child climbing down the stairs when I should have been at the feather ball. I crept on sleeper feet to listen to grown-up talk in the kitchen, talk that thrilled me for its rhythms as much as its news. Mrs. Romano's baby was in the arms of Jesus, but Dad's helper at the plant kicked the bucket. Aunt Kate had a bun in the oven. She and Uncle Walter played hanky-panky, but unmarried cousin Esther was simply in an interesting condition. The Rubensteins had to move because they were in reduced circumstances. Mr. R got the axe, but it was nothing to sweat, as I heard my mother say in her soft southern drawl. Vivian, as everyone knows, was economical with the truth. Mother said this was so because she'd been born on the wrong side of the tracks. I eventually figured these things out. No one, not even a child, is long fooled by euphemisms. We know collateral damage means civilians were killed, and peace enforcement means combat. When Bush said he did not want to use the L word, he was swabbing liberal with an unpleasant smell. My son called him shrub for much the same reason. An old ploy, dress up or dress down what you can't bring yourself to say straight. Still, I was often misled. My father would excuse himself saying he had to see a man about a horse. And for years I saw a world where goods toppled from the back of trucks because he came home occasionally with a watch or a coffee maker or a bag of oranges that he said fell off the back of one. Are euphemisms a healthy defense, a sign of consideration, or of an immature society? Money, Defecation, politics, masturbation, disease, and death garner most of our inventiveness, along with poor school performance and all the violent acts we commit in war. Orwell said it best. They give an appearance of solidity to pure wind. Toilets, latrines, privies, jakes. We all know no one rests in a restroom or says Jiminy Cricket for Jesus Christ anymore. Although the British still toss bloody about, forgetting it comes from By Our Lady, a reference to a woman who found herself in an interesting circumstance without hanky-panky or any act so indiscreet as to be called on the carpet by the man upstairs. Cows, with their eternal bowed head chewing pace. Large white cows, American white parks, I think, cross the meadow. A half-dozen summer-born calves among them. Each calf breaks into a scamper when it sees its favorite teat has gotten out of range. Blackbirds travel with them. Immigrant workers alighting backside to harvest blood-feeding insects from the hive. A soft rain falls. The woods beyond are uncommonly green for October, but the ferns in the foreground are the muted russet that spells in curly hieroglyphs a frost. Scolding crows crown 6 pin oaks. What have crows ever sanctioned in their raucous lives? When hunkered over raw flesh, they look like monks who wander cloisters with hands inside their cloaks. It's a despicable day in the larger world. A degrading public conversation, like a degrading private one, pollutes the spirit. And Congress has given our president unilateral power to attack another nation. Dread's staple gun pounds on our collective roof, and a scrim descends across our windows. Our so-called leaders see only the immediate green of what they claim is in our national interest. Blind to the coming cold, they move onward herd-like, one arrogant act after another. So we're all very familiar with degrading public conversations. I live about a half mile from the Connecticut River and can see a little bit of it in the winter. But I walk by the river all the time. And this is called What to Do with a River. In summer, all day long, and sometimes into the night, the noise of those sousing themselves on nautical pleasures, captains of leisure craft and their guests, ricochets off the river. Hulls slap against wakes, then galump over them. Quieter, the wavering and scissoring sails of the sailboats, the bright kayaks that add a silver slit to seams of light. Quieter still, the austere seasons of small laps against the river's banks. Then, bell clear, I hear gull call, bounce off ice. Yesterday, the river and sky seemed to be a wash of ink on rice paper, a wash lifted here and there with a dab of cotton. Then there's that week when the sealed river breaks, rumbles, groans like an old horse lifting itself up from cold ground. I've heard ice chunk Chalks clank and knock, as if an anchor struck and kept striking iron. I go down to the river to pray, not to pray, to consider impermanence, variability, temperament, color in itself, to lose myself in the river's rhythms, let its moods penetrate, note the floating wood, the herons, geese, gull. I think I could drown here, could rock up the pockets of my old wool coat, and why not? A few moments of rugged resolve trump the eked out erasures of assisted living, pain, dementia, nursing home. I have my eye on a path or two, spots to slip through unseen, to wade in till I stumble and, behold, the current takes. This is a poem for Earth Day. I'm sure for me and many artists and poets and, well, I can't think of anyone this is excluded from this. The earth. Choose the mic a little more. Sure. Sorry. The earth is my major source of inspiration. Living on earth. Hushed, hushed and holy, we wake in earth's light-filled house with its seasonal fluctuations and weathers. The trees in their motley, bees visiting flowers, each blossom with a different, entreating face, and each human generation tamed and tried by vicissitude and grief, our minds dazzlingly interlaced with our histories and the minds of others. Culture, community. The male peacock's tail raised in full display shimmers because he shakes with intention. That quivering, remember? Fiercely, sweetly, desire comes to us, at once both light and heavy. Besotted with sorrows, we are at times undone. The scintillant possibilities escaping like bonfire sparks, bursting into night's yawning mouth. Life and its strategies, an arduous, erudite text. Nothing that we are to imagine compares to a moment of actual perception. The autumn mountainside, orange, red, and russet at sunset, the hiss and crash of surf in any light, on any shore, sand skimming the lip of a dune as the wind unspools it, a beholding as well as a holding, the spellbinding, penetrating sweet vibrancy, raveling and unraveling, passion as vision, vision ablaze. This is the last poem I'll read. It's about the artist, lithographer, Escher. So all of you will have seen or known some of Escher's prints. So you have those in mind. And it begins with an image that may need a little elaboration. I was in the aquarium in Seattle, and they have built, they've built part of the aquarium so that there's a tunnel that walks through a glass enclosure. So as you're passing through it, you're surrounded by water on 360 everywhere, and you see the fish swimming over and under and around you, and so you're sort of underwater. So, Escher. I play a tiresome game, MC Escher. Walking through the plexiglass tube, that cores the enormous aquarium, designed to give humans a fish's perspective of lagoon life. Overhead and underfoot, and in my peripheral view, stealthy rays and quick silver perch, dozens of species varying in color and size. I kept seeing what Escher taught me to see, how distinctive objects can transform into subjects when form penetrates plane, and how glance turns to gaze when change emerges in motion. I thought of his Tower of Babel, its builders black and white anonymous figures, the tower elaborately ordered, roughly Byzantine, becoming plainer and more askew the higher it grew, for each worker could no longer understand the others. A man who worked his thinking out in woodcuts and lithographs, Escher was unable to explain the theories to mathematicians who were certain he represented ideas they alone knew. How I loved to imagine myself in his impossible buildings, climbing his topside and bottomside staircases, watching his larvae emerge into bees, bees into bombers, sharks into projectiles, blackbirds fly towards day as white birds fly toward night, transformations that reveal the paradox of entropy and order, and the most significant contradiction of all, that life and death inhabit the same